Welcome back to Media Mesh, where I give you my unapologetic opinion on everything from music, movies, news, reality TV, and much more as we go down a rabbit hole. Now, today we are going to be talking about Mr. Anton Daniels. He has a very interesting perspective, as you're about to hear, and then we're going to talk about it. I definitely have some opinions, and y'all know how I do. So if you're new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you like, share, and subscribe, and check out the playlist. There's over 135 videos up there for you to enjoy. Now let's get into it. Let's hear what Mr. Daniels has to say. And I'm assuming everybody can read, so take the captions off. Let's get into it.
Poor people should be having children. Having children when you don't have money creates more problems for the kids and society at large. And let's be honest, it's the middle class and, more importantly, rich people that are now responsible for paying for poor people's children. I know it's an unpopular truth, but I believe that every person should pass a test proving that they're income worthy prior to having kids. It's a false narrative that's being sold to people that you're entitled to have children and you don't need the resources or the money to be able to pay for them or support them. Having kids is way too easy, and the people that's having the most kids tend to be the worst people in society. I think it's irresponsible. And just because you don't like it, don't mean that it's not the truth, and you're not entitled to have kids just because you can.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to play a little bit more of what he has to say in just a few moments, but let's start there. I mean, these are some very strong statements, but my first question is why? I did a little bit of research. He's worth estimated $4 million. So it kind of reminds me of that episode of Chappelle where Rick James was over Eddie Murphy's house, and it's like it should never gave these niggas money. It just kind of gives me that kind of vibe. It's like your whole perspective changes when you get money, I guess, for some people. On one hand, he's definitely correct. You can't really argue 100% with what he's saying to some degree, because yes, there are definitely a lot of people who are not in the financial position to have children, but are you ever in a position to really have children? Some would argue and say yes, because some people actually plan to have a child. And so in planning, you obviously need to have finances in place. You have a plan for their college education. You have a plan for all this type of stuff. But do things happen? Yes. So I'm just wondering if there's not a better way for him to be more impactful following these statements. Because he has a net worth, like I said, around $4 million. What type of programs do you want to put in place to help educate people to actually get money to be a solution? Like we have so many people pointing out problems. I mean, this world is full of problems and very little solutions. And then the other part of it, he's saying you should have to pass a test. Like, what's the alternative? What are they going to do? Like, if somebody gets pregnant and they're poor, like, what are you going to take the baby from them? You're going to make them have, I can't say the other word, but, make them get rid of the baby? Like, what is the actual solution? What is the purpose behind what you're saying? Let's get into a little bit more and see what else Mr. Anton Daniels has to say about this subject.
Oh, okay. What do you feel is an appropriate income for families wanting to have children?
Well, it depends on where you live in the United States, right? First. But more importantly, I think that it is important to acknowledge that the people that have the majority of the kids are the ones that shouldn't be having kids. And then that becomes a burden on the people that actually have resources, which we then start to say, take more resources from people that have, and then we become a socialist society where we start to pass out more resources, and then we babysit. We make our teachers become over-glorified babysitters instead of being able to actually teach. Because if you've grown up in the environments that I've grown up in, even though we had resources, you realize that most of these environments and teachers and these kids become latchkey kids, and they don't have the resources. And then you take into consideration that inflation is at an all-time high, and it's becoming more and more expensive every single year in order to give a kid the resources that they need in order to be able to thrive. And so when you see that the population is starting to decline, or there's young people that are starting to make more informed decisions and say, hey, we shouldn't have kids, or maybe I should only have one because we only had one, they're taking into consideration what it really takes in order to raise that kid instead of just recklessly having children for the sake of creating a slave culture.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a quick pause there. So one other thing that I want to say about this is, how are we going to rectify the situation at this point? Especially because, let's say, as a woman did mention in the clip, what if you had a job? You started out with a job, 2 family income, everything's well, then one of those people loses their job. Now what? You already have the kids, so then I guess at some point you may have to rely on some type of government assistance. Now what? But the other side of it is, has anyone out there ever been actually affected by this? You know, and granted, I haven't reached millionaire status yet, but so far, I don't personally recall feeling the pinch of welfare. You know, I know, of course, you get all these taxes out of your check, but you still seem to make it, and you still seem to take care of what you need to take care of. So I don't know if, like, once you get to the $4 million status, do they have like an extra stipend, or an extra excise tax or something like that comes out to where you feeling a pinch? Because it sounds like he's coming from a place where he's being personally affected by the lives of other people. And I personally don't think that's the case. And it is interesting coming from a black man with this perspective. But again, I do understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, unless you're providing a solution to the problem, and maybe he is through his YouTube channel, because he does give people a lot of good advice on how to do business. So I think I would probably come out with more of that approach and say, well, listen, this is a problem in the community. And obviously he's referring to the majority of black folk. We can just say it. Of course, there's white folks in the same situation. So it's really kind of balanced in a way if you think about it. But you do see a lot of impoverished black young folks out here growing up in the hood. Case in point, I remember being at a store and seen a couple. There was a guy, he had his girlfriend, I assume. She's pregnant. They have a baby in the stroller, and they had one little one right next to him. So you're talking about 3 kids. And they were asking me for money so they can go get something to eat. Now that is a pretty sad situation, because obviously they would probably be considered poor if you're asking people for money. And in that moment, I'm looking like, well, wow, that is kind of crazy. Like, you got a baby in the oven, you got one in the stroller, and you got one that can just walk. Why are you having all these children if you're not able to take care of them? So I'm kind of mixed on this. So I need you guys to give me your feedback. I'm not passing judgment. This is my unapologetic opinion, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this topic. All right. So, hey, until next time, you guys be blessed. And, let's start a conversation. Very interesting subject right here with Mr. Anton Daniels coming out making a strong, bold statement on this. All right. Until next time, peace and blessings.